Hello, Year 6. This is chapter 13 of Pig Heart Boy, and it's called Hurt. Someone was calling me from far, far away. A quiet, muffled voice. Cameron? Cameron! The voice grew louder and more urgent. It rushed at me like the Eurostar train. Cameron! Cameron! And then I was awake. It was dark. Then I realised my eyes were still closed, but I was awake. Cameron, wake up now. Come on, Cameron. I was awake, and my chest hurt. Not badly, but it ached. I tried to take a deep breath, but a spear of pain shot through the front of me right to the back. I instantly held my breath, waiting for the pain to ease, but it didn't. Well, it did a little. Slowly I opened my eyes. Dr. Bryce, Dr. Ehrlich were looking down at me. They wore masks and gloves, but their eyes were happy, very happy. Their eyes actually shone with delight. That's when I knew I'd had the operation. I'd made it. I was still here, I thought. I smiled and the effort exhausted me. I tried to speak, but my tongue seemed stuck to the roof of my mouth and my throat hurt. Whoa, in fact, my throat was hurting quite badly. I hadn't expected that. I tried to swallow, but my mouth was as dry as Mars. Hello, Cameron, Dr. Bryce beamed at me, and you could tell from the tone in his voice. Even the mask over his face even showed that he was beaming. I raised my hand and put it over my throat. Dr. Bryce nodded. Oh, no, try not to speak. You've had an airway down your throat, so your throat will be sore for at least a day or two. My heart's gone, I thought to myself. Only then did I remember. Only then did I dare to think. My old, rubbishy heart had gone, and in its place, a brand new, strong pig's heart. And then it happened. It crept up on me so slowly that I didn't realise what was happening until I was in the middle of it. I was hurting. But not so much hurting as aching uncomfortably. My chest ached, my stomach ached. I wanted a cough, I had a headache, my throat ached, I felt sick. There was probably a millimetre long hair somewhere on the back of one of my hands that was comfortable, but that seemed about it. I tried to ask for help. I tried to tell the doctors how I felt. My tongue refused to move. The doctors continued to beam at me, of course. Well, we'll let you get some rest for now, said Dr. Bryce. And when you wake up again, you can see your mum and dad. I closed my eyes, and just like that, I was out of it again. For the next day, I drifted in and out of myself. At least that's what it felt like. I don't remember too much about it, in fact. It just seemed that every time I opened my eyes, there was someone else there smiling at me, whether it was mum and dad, the doctors, the nurses. I even dreamt that, this is strange, that Trudy the pig was there smiling at me. And then at last I opened my eyes, and I was awake. Really awake, and fully aware of my surroundings. Well, how are we feeling, Cameron? Dr. Ehrlich was instantly at my side, smiling. I coughed and instantly felt my chest was going to come apart. You will have a cough for a couple of days, and that's the anaesthetic wearing off, I'm afraid. How's your throat today? I swallowed hard. My mouth was no longer as dry as before. My throat wasn't as sore either, thank goodness. Better, I croaked. Was that really my voice? I sounded like a rusty frog. Would you like a little ice to suck on? Yes, please. I was still croaking. The doctor used a teaspoon to fish out a small chunk of ice out of the water jug on the table by my bed. She popped it into my grateful mouth. It was cool, wet, and actually delicious. You're doing phenomenally well. You can sit up, and if tests run favourably today, then we could probably have you walking in a couple of steps maybe tomorrow. I stared at the doctor. She had to be kidding, right? You'd just given me a heart operation. What was going on? Are you short of beds or something? No, Cameron. It's quite a common practice. The doctor's smile broadened. She could obviously read my expression. Not too long ago, it was standard practice to stay in bed for weeks after an operation. Now, it's recognised that it's actually bad for you. We like to get our patients up and about as quickly as possible, even heart patients. Do you understand? I nodded and looked around. I took more of an interest in my surroundings. I wasn't in my room anymore. There were machines all around me, and I had an intravenous drip attached to one arm and another to the other. Pads on my chest were hooked up to a heart monitor beside my bed, and it had what looked like crocodile clips attached to the ends of two of my fingers. There was some kind of cuff around one of my ankles as well. Actually, I felt a bit like Pinocchio before he had all his strings cut off. I looked up at the intravenous bags on either side of me and pointed to the left one. What's in that? I indicated with my head. It contains your anti-rejection drug, said Dr. Ehrlich. And that one? dextrose and saline. Huh? Sugar and salt water, just to make sure you don't become dehydrated. Dr. Bryce entered the room. How are we feeling today then? Fine, I shrugged. And I actually was feeling fine in a peculiarly kind of detached kind of way. Somehow it was a bit of an anticlimax. I spent so many weeks thinking about the operation and the days leading up to it that I hadn't really given much thought of what I would do afterwards. And now I was here, with not much of a clue, to be honest, of what I should be doing next. We're amazed by your progress. You're doing extremely well, Dr. Bryce told me. Oh, does that mean I can go home soon? I asked. There was no escaping the look that passed between Dr. Bryce and Dr. Ehrlich. Is something wrong? I asked immediately. Nothing for you to worry about. Dr. Bryce's smile was now as wide as it was false. I studied him carefully. I thought you were going to be honest with me and not treat me like an idiot, I said, disappointed. Dr. Bryce shook his head slowly. Oh, sorry, I'm really sorry if that came across that way. It's just we got a little bad news today. Oh, no, not about your operation, he added quickly when he saw the look on my face. At least, not directly. The doctor then paused and took a deep breath. He then turned to Dr. Ehrlich. Janice, could you go and get Cameron's parents for me, please? What's going on? I struggled to sit further up in bed. The beep of the heart monitor was getting faster, as if I needed that to tell me that I was getting more anxious. Mum and Dad came into the room and their expressions were grim. Mum was carrying a newspaper. In that instant, I knew exactly what had happened. I did ask all of you to keep this strictly confidential until at least we formally release the details to the media, Dr. Bryce said, to no one in particular. Which is how I knew he meant me. Marlon gave me his word, I said quickly, that he wouldn't tell anyone, not even his parents. I couldn't deny that I'd been the one to blab, but I still tried to defend myself. Oh, well, this newspaper speaks for itself then, doesn't it? Mum said tersely. Dad shook his head. I thought John and Erica were our friends. I thought of Marlon's mum and dad, and all the times we spent back and forth each other's houses. Our two families had even toured around the Lake District together. I'm sure that rag made them a massive offer they couldn't refuse, Dr. Bryce said with disgust. But they must have gone to the newspapers with the story to sell it in the first place, Mum pointed out. I stretched out my hand for the newspaper. Mum gave it to me with another word. I took one look at the headline and it was enough to confirm my worst fears. The boy with the pig's heart inside his body. This whole business will now be turned into a bit of a three-ring circus, Dr. Bryce shook his head, and each of us will be considered the exhibits. Maybe a 1 week wonder, though, Dad said hopefully. I'm sure the press will find something else to do tomorrow. Both Dr. Bryce and Dr. Ehrlich stared at Dad in stunned amazement. Mum just looked at him as if he'd lost his marbles. Me? Well, I had other things on my mind. Marlon. My best friend. My best friend. Well, you don't do that to each other. Friends don't betray each other. Friends could keep secrets. I looked down at the newspaper again. The headline shrieked back at me. I can't understand it, I whispered. Why did Marlon do it? Why? And at that moment I felt more hurt inside than anything the doctors could have done over the last few days. Marlon was supposed to be my friend. In his shoes, well, I'd never have told anyone. No, never. Your friend's motives aren't the issue now, though, are they? We all have to decide how we're going to proceed from here. Mr. and Mrs. Kelsey, perhaps we could discuss this outside? No, this concerns me, doesn't it? This is all about me, after all. Shouldn't I be part of the discussions? Dad shook his head. Oh, we don't want you to be even more upset than you already are. I couldn't be more upset. But don't worry, I'm not about to keel over. Mum nodded, slowly then smiled. I don't think this is a very good idea, Dad began. Mum shrugged. Mike, as Cameron said, this does involve him too. And if he feels up to it and Dr. Bryce doesn't have any objections, then I see why not. Don't see why not. Dr. Bryce took a good, hard look at me, and then he kind of visibly relaxed. Cameron, I'm sure you'll appreciate, our first priority now is to protect you. And if we don't do something, and fast, the press will be all over your family like a cheap perfume. He sounded like he was quoting a line from one of those old black and white detective movies that Nan always liked so much. It was so funny and peculiar to hear him say something like that I almost smiled. Well, almost. So, what do we do? Mum asked. We spike their guns, Dr. Bryce replied, without hesitation. I'll call an immediate press conference to tell the press exactly what has happened. Do you all have somewhere else to stay other than your house then? Dad frowned. Why? Because I think you should all lay low for a little while, just in case, this hullabaloo is all around your house. You wanted to die it down a little. Lie low? We're not outlaws or criminals. Why should we lie low? Mum snapped back. Just believe me, it's the best thing, Dr. Bryce soothed. It won't be long, maybe a month or two. A month or two? Mum wasn't the only one who was shocked. The press can be very relentless. No, said Mum's voice very quickly. I'm not going to let the press, or anyone else for that matter, hound us out of our house. We haven't done anything wrong here. I'm just going to I'm not going to let anyone treat us as if we have been. Mrs. Kelsey, I really would recommend we're not moving out of our house. And just as soon as Cameron's fit enough, he's coming back with us too. I'm back to school. Mum's heels were well and truly dug in. I'm sorry, Dr. Bryce, but I think my wife's right. We have to face it sooner or later. Surely it's better to do it now and get it over with. Then we can all go back to normal, said Dad. Mr. and Mrs. Kelsey, I know, and you're underestimating just what a pack of vultures these press guys will be. I've been dealing with the press camping out on my doorstep before, so I know what I'm talking about. Dr. Bryce said sternly. As long as we have each other, we can handle it, though, said Dad. It'll be 1 week wonder, I'm telling you, the whole thing will blow over. Mum looked up at Dad and smiled. For the first time in a long time, they actually just looked at each other and smiled. And I was temporarily forgotten. I didn't mind, to be honest. It was really nice to see. It made a great change. I think you're both deluding yourselves for Cameron's sake, so I would urge you to reconsider. Dr. Bryce wasn't giving up. We'll be okay, Mum turned to smile at the doctor. The sooner we can get back to normal, the better, surely. The doctor shook his head. Look, I'll call the press conference for tomorrow and another when Cameron's ready to go home. Are you both prepared to take part in the second conference with me? Dad turned to Mum with a questioning look. Is that necessary? Mum asked. I would recommend it. It's better to throw the wolves a bit of a morsel or two rather than devour you alive, believe me. Okay, then we'll do it. Cameron's going to be fine, and that's what I want to tell the world. So when can I go home? I asked Dr. Bryce. Well, if you carry on like this, I can't see a reason why you couldn't go home within the next month. The next month? I felt dismayed. That long? Cameron, the worst thing I could do now is send you home before I had maybe a 100% convinced that this anti-rejection therapy is working. Don't forget, this particular type of transplant has really never been done before. I slouched back against my pillows, disappointed, of course. All I wanted to do now was go home, and then to school, and show my friends that I was the same as them. I wanted to play football, and swim, and dance. I smiled ruefully. I guess the truth of the matter was, I wanted to show off a little. But until then, well, I just have to be patient.